Simon & Schuster Audio presents The Adults by Alison Espach. Copyright 2011 by Alison Espach. Published by arrangement with Scribner. Read by Tavia Gilbert.
Everything was like my mother said. 1. They arrived in bulk, in black tie preferred, in one large clump behind our wooden fence, peering over each other's shoulders and into our backyard like people at the zoo who wanted a better view of the animals. My father's 50th birthday party had just begun. It's true that I was expecting something. I was 14, my hair still sticky with lemon from the beach, my lips maroon and pulpy and full like a woman's, red and smothered like a giant wound, my mother said earlier that day. She disapproved of the get-up, of my yellow fit and flare dress that cradled my hips and pointed my breasts due north, but I didn't care. I disapproved of this party, this whole at-home affair that would mark the last of its kind. The women walked through the gate in black and blue and gray and brown pumps, the party already proving unsuccessful at the grass level. The men wore sharp dark ties like swords and said predictable things like, "Hello." "Welcome to our lawn," I said back with a goofy grin, and none of them looked me in the eye because it was rude or something. I was too yellow, too embarrassing for everyone involved, and I inched closer to Mark Resnick, my neighbor, my maybe-one-day boyfriend. I stood up straighter and overemphasized my consonants. There were certain ways you had to position and prepare your body for high school, and I was slowly catching on, but not fast enough. Every day, it seemed, I had to say goodbye to some part of myself. Like last week at the beach, my best friend Janice, in her new shoestring bikini, had looked down at my Adidas one-piece and said, "Emily, you don't need a one-piece anymore. This isn't a sporting event." But it sort of was. You could win or lose at anything when you were 14, and Janice was keeping track of this. First person to say cunt in 2 different languages, Richard Trenton, girls' bathroom, cunnis, cunta, an achievement that Ernest Bingley decried as invalid since Old Norse doesn't count as a language. Ernest Bingley, first person ever to cry while reading a poem aloud in English class, dulce et decorum est. There were other competitions as well, competitions that had only losers, like who's got the fattest ass, Annie Lars, the most cartoonish face, Kenneth Bentley, the most pubes, Janice Nix. As a child, I shaved the hair off my Barbies to feel prettier, Janice had confessed earlier that morning at the beach. She sighed and wiped her brow as though it was the August heat that made her too honest, but Connecticut heat was disappointingly civil. So were our confessions. "That's nothing," I said. "As a child, I thought my breasts were tumors." I whispered, afraid the adults could hear us. Janice wasn't impressed. "Okay, as a child, I sat out in the sun and waited for my blood to evaporate," I said. I admitted that sometimes I still believed blood could vanish like boiling water or a puddle in the middle of summer. But Janice was already halfway into her next confession, admitting that last night she touched herself and thought of our middle school teacher, Mr. Heller, despite everything, even his mustache. "Which we can't blame him for," Janice said. I thought of Mr. Heller's hands and then waited. And then nothing. No orgasm. "What'd you expect?" I said, shoving a peanut in my mouth. "He's so old." At the beach, the adults always sat 10 feet behind our towels. We carefully measured the distance in footsteps. My mother and her friends wore floppy straw hats and reclined in chairs patterned with Rod Stewart's face and neon ice cream cones and shouted, "Don't stick your head under," as Janice and I ran to the water's edge to cool our feet. My mother said sticking your head in the Long Island Sound was like dipping your head in a bowl of cancer, to which I said, "You shouldn't say cancer so casually like that." A woman who volunteered with my mother at Stamford Hospital, the only woman there who had not gotten a nose job from my neighbor, Dr. Trenton, held her nose whenever she said Long Island Sound or sewage, as if there was no difference between the two things. But the more everybody talked about the contamination, the less I could see it. The farther I
Sample complete. Ready to continue?